Hi, thank you for tuning in to Elijah Call. I'm Sunny Garrett, and I am here with some people that I go to church with. We want to talk to you guys tonight about a program that we have called Living Free. With me tonight, I have Nate and Camille Mallett and Bobby Davis, and we're all a part of this Living Free program at Faith Harvest Fellowship. Nate and Camille, you head this program up here at Faith Harvest, which is not limited to Faith Harvest Fellowship, but the program we have here, you guys are heading up. Can you tell us, Camille, just a little bit about what Living Free is and how it potentially can reach the community around us?
Sure. Living Free is just, it's a network of classes orchestrated. It's a faith-based program. Right now our emphasis here at this church is for concerned persons and for the Insight Group. So to kind of describe what the Insight Group is, and that's a group tailored toward a person who might be using currently or actively in recovery. And the Concerned Persons Group is for family members or friends who know people who would be using, or and when I say using, I'm speaking specifically to drugs and alcohol, although Living Free is for other things such as anybody who might be struggling with food addictions. There's gambling, there's sexual addictions, so it's a network of all of those sorts of things that somebody might be struggling with. But right now at our church, the focus is for Insight Group and concerned persons, and we are working to try to develop that into something else where people who are in active recovery, the stages of recovery that they're in, groups tailored toward what their amount of years of sobriety or something that they might be dealing with later on down the road that comes up, and just kind of plugging them into a church and really utilizing the word and tailoring that to each person's individual needs.
Okay, great. And you mentioned that it's not just for, addiction issues. Mm-hmm. It's not limited to that specifically. I think when we talk about, life controlling problems and life controlling issues, those are the ones that pop up first. Those are the ones that our mind kind of goes to. But on a broader spectrum, Can you tell me, Bobby, how many different assets does this have in a person's life? There's so many different ways that it can help outside of the drugs and the alcohol as well.
Sure, it teaches you, or you get instruction on how to live life on life's terms. Mm-hmm. Whatever your life controlling issue is, you will learn through these classes to be able to basically control whatever that life controlling issue is. Right. Like Camille said, there are many life controlling issues, but the main thing most people think about when they hear that word, that a life controlling issue, is basically drugs or alcohol. Mm-hmm. But there are many facets of life controlling issues. Like she mentioned, there's gambling, there's sex, there's food. Anything, that can control your life is a life-controlling issue. But these classes teach you how to live and work through those life-controlling issues.
Right. And I think for me, all of us here are a part of this program. Like I said, Nate and Camille, they head it up, and Bobby and I both facilitate. And when I first heard about Living Free through our church, I think I wanted to be a part of it, and I wanted to take the classes mostly so that I could help other people. And I was really surprised when I got involved and when I started going through the classes how much they applied to my life now. I've given my testimony on the show about how, you know, I had been an addict. I had been a very heavy drinker, and it wasn't until years after I was sober and clean that I found out about living free. But what are some ways, even Nate, I know you had addiction problems in your past as well. Like, but it's been several years that you've been sober and, you know, living for God. So in what ways does this program, how does it help you still? Like, how is it still a good idea even when, you know, you're not facing those issues right now in your life?
I think a big part of the program, it's so much like, it's so God-centered that it speaks to you every time. Just like if you open the Bible up and you take a look at Scripture, you know, it's something that always speaks. It's always moving. It's always a way for you to get into it and open another door somewhere in your life. And you get something out of it each time. And I've gone through a couple different treatment, you know, through AA, and I've been through other treatment facilities here and in northeastern Ohio. And the one thing that this program has, that it just allows you to open it up and you get into the Word as well. And with that, I mean, it just uncovers everything.
Right. And, you know, with it being I think the setup for the groups are, you know, there's anywhere from 4 or 5 to, I think you can go up to 12 as far as the guidelines for the program. But, you know, and people just, you have a workbook that you work from, and you do the work throughout the week. But then when you come together and you're with all these other people, you know, you take what you've seen outlined, you know, through these workbooks and through the scriptures that you're reading, and you sit down at a table with people who might have a completely different take on it, you know, and it's really, I've seen it it's opened my eyes to some things, you know, to see it in a completely different light. And I've seen it open other people's eyes to things, you know, and say, hey, I've never even thought of it that way before. Have you guys had, in facilitating, any similar experiences with that, how it's just really shown a different light on different scriptures and different topics?
I know for me, definitely, because, you know, when I worked this book and I started into this, I was, you know, when I first started in, I was coming in with like tunnel vision, and I was like, okay, you know, I'm looking at it as an alcoholic. You know, I was looking at it through my addiction. So when I started to interact with other people in the group, and they started to talk about a food or, you know, something that they're struggling with, that never even entered my mind.
Right.
You know, it was something that I was just so set on what I was dealing with that once you started to hear some of the other things, kind of opens you up, and you're like, wow, well, maybe I need to take a look at that as well. Right. And I think that being able to sit there and have such an intimate group, it really helps kind of broaden the horizon. You kind of get a little bit more understanding of what other people are going through as well. Right.
And I think also, again, for me personally, as well as I've seen it happen in other people's lives through these programs, through these classes, where you come in with that tunnel vision and with focusing on one thing, and you take away from it something completely different that you've learned about yourself, you know, and absolutely. About something that God's been trying to deal with you about, that you were completely in the dark about. So, I mean, it's on so many levels good for, I think, just a general audience, really. You know, I think that anybody could benefit from these classes. I know, do you guys have any other experiences with just, you know, God opening your eyes to different things and to different areas of your own life, maybe, that it's helped you on a more personal note? Like, you know, I think we all of us sitting here went into it with the intent of being able to help others. but how has it helped us on, a more personal level? Whether it's getting closer to God or dealing with things through, through these programs that have come up in ourselves.
For me, hearing other people's stories and kind of seeing that other people are struggling with the same things, or seeing all of these different people, this diverse range of people who are dealing with things that we all deal with, and kind of just seeing all these different walks of life coming together, people who may not go to church, people who go to church, and kind of hearing the things that they're going through. And I guess the part of me that signed up to do this because I have a sincere passion to help people, that helped me to kind of see like a whole nother walk of life, or a whole nother like focus of people. And another thing that really ministered to me was seeing people who may not have any church, never been to church, never partaken in any type of church activity, coming and just really having their hearts opened up to God, and just watching God's word just really work in people's lives and pull out some of those vulnerabilities. And God's timing is so perfect, and to be able to have a group of people come together that's all been ordained. God knew, exactly what he was doing when he created these groups, and why he strategically has placed different people in those groups. So to kind of see people who haven't necessarily been to church minister to one another, not intentionally, and just seeing how God moves in the group and in my own life, and just seeing that has ministered to me tremendously. So.
Right. And I know you did mention, hearing other people's stories and being able to feed off of them. And it really does turn into, it's a 9-week course, correct? So it's, over the weeks, as you get further and further into it, it just becomes like so it's a support system, and you learn to trust people, and you learn to, and I think that was a big thing for me as well, is because I'd never really, before this group, talked about my past too much. I'd never really shared much about it. But you get comfortable with the group, and that kind of makes you stronger as an individual, I think, to be able to share and speak out. I know there's several different Living Free places that are coming into, starting this program up. I know there's several places around Wayne County, and I'm sure other places as well. What is here at Faith Harvest? What's the goal? Like what is something that you want to see come from these groups, from connecting with people here in your own community? Like
deliverance. Ultimately, I think the ultimate goal is for people to become delivered from things that are taking the place that Jesus is supposed to have in their life, and to get to know him and have him work in their lives and kind of deliver them from those life-controlling problems.
Right. And what about awareness too? I think, the drug addiction lately has kind of been on a rampage. It's undeniable that there's a serious issue. But there's still people who are in the dark about that, and there's still people who don't realize other things that can be life-controlling problems. I think awareness is also a big one to bring to the community, to bring to people, that might not know, So if there's somebody out there watching that doesn't realize, is there something that you guys would have to say to them, if they don't realize that this is a problem, that it actually is? What would you have to say to them that might open up their eyes to the need for a program like Living Free?
I think that regardless of the awareness or whatever, this program can help anybody at any time in any walk of life. I think it's important that people understand what is going on, because it's not just affecting a certain age group or demographic. It is so widespread, and it's attacking everywhere. So it's not just going to be, like this person and this group, it's totally affecting them, so it's not my problem. It's so wide, and it's truly hitting so many families throughout, and it's not just here in Wayne County or Ohio. This is widespread throughout the United States, and I think that I think that people have to at least start to see the things that are going on, because it's on the news all the time. Every time you turn around, there's a fatality from it. So it's just one of those things that this program can create awareness, but it also brings insight into ways you can deal with it, how you can help, things you can notice, what you may be doing that could, kind of be helping that person get to where they're getting, or on the other side, help them, realize what's going on in their lives and get them to a place to where they can get help.
Right.
So I just think that I think the awareness is out there. I really do. And I think you can't turn any, channel or turn the corner without hearing about it. So I just think that this is something that, again, if you're not even dealing with something that you think that is a problem, I think if you attend this, and like you'd said earlier, this isn't going to be the only place that has it.
Right.
Right now we have other churches that are coming together and going through the classes themselves, so they're able to in turn go ahead and provide those classes throughout Wayne County. And Living Free is huge. I mean, it's throughout the United States. It's not anything that we have specifically right here. So it really is creating something for people that need to get help. There's going to be plenty of avenues for it.
Right.
And I think that's a good thing to bring up, is that there are ways to get your church involved. There are ways to spread it. Not all of us sitting here live in Wayne County, and we can start thinking outside of just these couple of classes that we hold here, and start getting that to spread, to surrounding counties. I think that's a big necessity as well.
And it's also something that doesn't have to go on just in a church. You can put this together with the training, and you could hold it at your local library or another sort of center. I mean, it's something that you can take the training and really provide a recovery program like AA and things of that nature. So it's not something that's in one single place.
Right.
I believe that the church plays a big part in this program. Not just Living Free. I'm a recovered alcoholic. I'm a recovered addict. And the big books, or the AA programs, the NA programs, all those AA programs, they are all spiritually based programs, and they tell you in there, that no human power could relieve you of your whatever your life controlling issue is, but God could and would if He were sought. So the church can play a big part in this, where like just outside the church, since God is the one that's going to deliver you from that. The church can play a big part in this, and I believe that. And a lot, it attacks everybody, So people in the church have life controlling issues just as easy as people who don't have a life controlling issue. But I think we have the capacity, the ability, to help others because we are caring and loving people. And I know as a recovered alcoholic or addict, that one of the ways I learned in that program, that the therapeutic value of one alcoholic and one addict helping another is without parallel, because one alcoholic or one addict can best help and understand another alcoholic, So that is one reason that I try to stay involved in a lot of different programs I volunteer in, because it not only helps the other person, but it helps me. Helping others helps me to stay clean and sober, or deal with whatever my life controlling issue is.
Right. And I think that's one thing too that I love about this program, is it really does equip you, to help others, whether you've been through it or whether you haven't, whether you've just known somebody or whatever the case may be. It really does just give you the tools that you need to be able to really make an impact in somebody's life. And it's definitely worth the time.
This program can work for anybody. It's a design for living is what it is.
Right. And there's really, talking about all of the things that we're seeing on TV, all of the, it is really right there in your face. You can't deny that it's a growing problem. And there's really no better time to start to try to work towards fixing that problem, to start to try to work towards, having an impact on the situation that's at hand. Camille, can you talk a little bit about, the impact that we can have, as just followers of Christ, as people who are trying to show, the love of God through this program?
Mm-hmm. I strongly believe, and I think other people may disagree with me, but the reason that we have the problem that we have is because the church and because people aren't telling their stories. Christians aren't telling their stories. If we were out in the community and we were, really telling people what God's done in our own lives, somebody else who's struggling with a life-controlling problem would know that Jesus is the answer for that. And instead of heroin or instead of an opiate or a food or whatever they're gravitating toward that's taking that place that Jesus is supposed to have in their life. It's so important for us to tell our stories. There's power in our testimonies. Right. And for each and every one of us, I didn't struggle with drugs or alcohol, but there were other things that I struggled with. And that still, my testimony still has power to reach other people who, may have grown up the same way I did or have gone through the same things that I have gone through. And there's a lot of inspiration and power in being able to say, I was there, and because of God and because of what Jesus has done in my life, I've been delivered from that, and this is how I did it, and this is how you can do it too. So a lot of it is just talking about your story and just being personal and intimate with people and allowing yourself to be vulnerable, because Jesus will use you strategically to have an impact in somebody's life.
Yep.
So.
And the Bible says, by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimonies. Yep. So I think that's the most powerful tool, and also, like I had mentioned, I had never really given a testimony before. I'd never really spoken out about my past, and there was just kind of a shame there for so long, and that's something that this program's helped me with also, is being able to step out and being able to speak up, without shame, and knowing that there's, no matter what the mistake, no matter what you've had to come through, there's purpose in it, and that's something that I'm seeing now in my life personally that I've never seen before through this program, is that I'm able to speak to people who have, are maybe not quite as far along in the journey as I've come, and really be able to minister to them. And there's a relatability, and I think Bobby touched on that a little bit earlier. There's a relatability there, if somebody who's never touched a drop of alcohol in their life, comes to somebody who's a struggling alcoholic in that situation, it's not going to be relatable to them. They're not going to be able to say, okay, this guy knows where I'm coming from here, and it's just getting these people together. I think it's getting us together in the same place, or in the same places as we talked about. There's more than just Faith Harvest. But it's getting us in the same places that are really there's strength in numbers, I think,
yes.
And it's really going to take off. I feel like this is a God-breathed program. I feel like it's definitely got potential to work His will, through many people. And there's never limits on what God can do when we're willing vessels, So is there any other topics that you guys want to talk about as far as living free? Is there anything that God has put on your heart personally to just, somebody might be sitting at home watching the show and just still wondering and still contemplating whether this is for them? Is there anything God's just laying on you to speak out right now to somebody who might be still up in the air about this whole program?
Well, like I said, that it's put on throughout the United States and in different cities and whatnot, and some of the other places that it's currently being available would be jails and things of that nature. So, having spent time in jail, and I know, Bobby, you have as well, when you get out, it's kind of like just a overflow. You know, you're back at it, and you come out, and it's like everything hits you at once. So this program also, you know, if they may have started it incarcerated, you know, you're going to be able to come out and be able to join and link up with these programs and move along, because you know, the two that we're offering now, the Insight and the Concerned Person, that's just a tip of an iceberg. There's so many programs that they have to offer, and as we continue to grow, you know, those will be other classes and groups that we can get together and just really, you know, sit down and work through. And I'm excited to work through them myself, because like you know, we've all said that it's something that's ministered to us each time we've taken it. You know, even as a facilitator, and you're going through the class with everybody else, you're learning and you're getting stuff just the same. I mean, like I said, it works every time. It's always breathing. It's always moving. It's always fixing, healing. It's just it's something that is. It's just a great program.
It's so true. There's always takeaway. There's always takeaway. So, you know, if there's, you know, anything else that you guys wanted to add, or I really want to give some information too about how to get in contact with somebody about this program. But before I do, if there's anything else, you know, that God just, you know, has laid on your heart that you want to say before we end the program tonight.
I just would encourage people, this is a no judgment zone. We are here because we've lived it, we've walked it, and we love you. God loves you, and we want to be able to help you. And we would just encourage people to come and wherever you're at, I just pray that the Lord, if this is something that the Lord's laid on your heart to be a part of, that you just be brave enough and vulnerable enough to just step in and let God do that work, because allowing Him to step in and do that, God will work and God will heal you and God will deliver you from what you're struggling with. Absolutely. And if you're intimidated of larger groups, or maybe you're scared of what somebody might think, like Sonny's testimony of feeling shameful, this group, I was afraid at first. I'm a very shy, inhibited person. So seeing the people and seeing people who've gone through things that I've gone through, or maybe things that I haven't gone through, but just the fact that somebody's willing to open up enough to share those things, that's what we're all here for. It's all a growing process, and I really just would encourage you, if you're struggling with anything, to just take that step forward, because there's power in that step, and God will meet you where you're at.
Right.
And I think it'll really lift the weight off your shoulders too.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you're letting that out to God and others that can help you with that, and it just takes that tremendous weight that's just always there pushing down on you, and just lets it go.
Yes, it does.
Absolutely. So if you are in the Wayne County area and you would like to get information about the Living Free program that we have here at Faith Harvest Fellowship, the email address for that is livingfree@faithharvestfellowship.org. Or maybe, you know, you're watching this show tonight and you have a home church and you feel like this is something that could be productive in your county, in your community, you know, or, you know, as we talked about also, it doesn't necessarily have to be in a church, but the Living Free program isn't just limited to Faith Harvest Fellowship. So if you want to just check it out and just see what all that is offered through Living Free, that's just livingfree.org. And, you know, you can get a hold of us through those two ways. And we just thank you for tuning in tonight. We hope that things that have been said have touched your heart, and we think that, you know, I hope that you just really heard from God. So visit us again at 10:30 p.m. on Sundays at NCTV. Thank you.